Alright, guys, I'm trying. Okay, we're trying. I'm trying to get Mr. Murrell again. Uh, yes, you got me? Hey, Hadley, could you push that green button? It's a green button on the live spring. Like it should be on the bottom part of this. So yeah. If you could push that, then I could invite you in. That'd be awesome. Yes. All right, we got it, man. We totally got it. Let me close this door. Yes, we got you. No, no, oh no. This is it. This is it, Hadley. I'm adding you right now. I got you. What's up, Lou? How you doing, man? Okay. So just like we got it. I'm adding you right now. You should be coming on. Oh no. Hey Hadley, you keep declining it. Let's try it again. I'm gonna request you, and then you just respond. Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Hey
We do it on my
everybody.
phone. We do it on my phone. That way we're squared.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this
Okay.
is really cool. So you guys, this is a treat, and thank you for your patience, and also thank you, Mr. Hadley Murrell, for your patience. It's an honor, more than an honor, to seriously interview you. You guys, if you don't know who this guy is, you need to, and I'm sure you guys probably will. Oh man, Hadley Murrell is a producer. He's a musician. He's a songwriter, and so much more. Man, I am honored. Oh, I'm like beyond words. So I don't know if that's a cool introduction, but tell us about yourself. Tell me something, and I have a bunch of questions to ask. Um,
Well,
tell us
I,
about.
I'll give you some brief information and then we can go from there. I'm better at answering questions than anything else. I've been in
Okay,
this business since I was about 13, 14. Started out as a drummer. Went from that to radio, concert promoter, manager. I've done a little bit of everything, and it traveled the world, and it all has to do with music. If it hadn't been for music, none of these great things would have happened.
wow. How did you get started in this? I'm just curious. Like you were very young. Like there's for all of you guys that don't know, there's two things that came out in recent times. One was a compilation of garage rock music from Arizona from 1967 to 1970. And Hadley Murrell actually produced a lot of these bands and played with these bands. One of the bands that caught my ear was the first band that I heard on this comp before I even realized they were on there was a band called Bliss. a lot of guys are collecting all these old hard rock and heavy metal type music, and I heard this on a compilation on YouTube, and I was just like amazed. And then when I found out it was on this compilation that I just bought from Amoeba randomly, I was like, whoa, the whole compilation was really cool because it not only had that hard rock band, it had like, you know, soul music, kind of, excuse me, um, kind of pop, sort of, even like kind of pre-punkish type stuff. It was like really garage type stuff. What was the thing that inspired you? And who were your earlier influences in music?
Well, when I first started out being in Phoenix, there wasn't a lot of R&B. So um, my grandmother was a music teacher, and she taught every kind of instrument there was: piano, guitar, violin. And I got tired of getting my butt whipped because I never do my piano lessons. So she said, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "I want to play drums." So she got me my first drum set. Was a $50 drum set, and
Wow.
a group called the Geyser Brothers, or we eventually became the Carnations. I bought their drummer's drum set, and they didn't have a drummer, so they asked me to play with them. So while I was in high school, we would drive up and down Van Buren Avenue and play at all these juke joints. Were basically hillbilly music and country. And so on the weekends, I'd make like $75, which was a lot of money back then for a kid just playing with the band. And we would pass the hat and make $50 here and go in another place and make $50. So we would do that. We would make that money. So one thing led to another. I did that, and I was a child of radio. So I spent 90% of my time listening to radio. And I listened to all kind of music from rock and roll to R&B to country. And then I got into putting together teen dances for Chicanos, the Hispanic kids in Phoenix. And I did that for years until I got a job at a radio station. And I really got the job because the guy saw me doing these teenage dances. And he said, "Well, would you like to join the radio station?" It was the first black radio station in Phoenix. I said, "Yeah, it would be fun." So I went to work for them, and before we went on the air, they fired all the disc jockeys, and I was the only guy left. So the guy told me go in there and be the disc jockey. So I had already practiced the turntable, so I went in and I started playing the old records that I had, which were oldies but goodies. That was the songs that I used to play at all my teenage dances. And it was funny that what happened is the ratings, the Arbitron ratings came out, and when they came out at the radio station, I was like number 6 or 7 DJ in the whole city. So
Wow.
now instead of it being a part-time job, they made me a full-time DJ. I wound up being a program music director there before I went on to a top 40 radio station.
How old were you when you did all this? I'm curious, just like with the radio DJ thing.
I think I had just come close to turning 21, 19, something like that. I'm not sure when I went to KCAC Radio, and
Wow.
I sold advertising and I had my radio gig, and then uh, one of the DJs they brought out.
Center your face more.
One of the DJs they brought out was Eddie OJ, who named the OJs out of Cleveland,
Wow.
and he decided, he said, "You've been doing all these dances. How'd you like to get into bringing in some big acts?" So I said, "Yeah." So Eddie taught me a lot, and the lot he told me was to get my business straight. So
Mm.
we brought out Marvin Gaye,
Wow.
and we had a group called Carl LaRue and his crew that we brought out from Buffalo, and who eventually became Dyke and the Blazers. And they were rehearsing with Marvin Gaye, and I get a phone call, and he said, "Man, Marvin's upset." I said, "What's wrong?" He said,
Uh-oh.
the drummer doesn't know these. The drummer doesn't know how to play these songs." So I said, "Well, I know the songs." He said, "Well, come on over to the rehearsal." So I came over there, and Marvin said, "You're a DJ. How do you know how to play the drums?" I said, "Man, I learned to play the drums playing Stubborn Kind of Fella, Hitchhike, and Think by James Brown." I said, "And if you can play Think by James Brown, you can play anything." So I
Wow.
wound up that night being his drummer.
That's amazing.
You know. So, but anyhow, it just I mean, I could talk for an hour, but we just these are things that happened to me as a kid. You know, going through you know, playing all over the place. I was drummer, DJ, concert promoter, and then making records, and that was my true love.
What was it like? I noticed and one of the things when I was reading the liner notes in the garage music thing, it's just, and I'm so glad you noted this, that there was such a diverse like music scene. I mean, you had Black Americans, you know, a lot of Chicanos, Indian people, a lot of white people, all in the same scene, and it's like you were kind of responsible for a lot of that. From what I gather, how was it having such a diverse scene, even in that time where, you know, a lot of the stuff that was going on with the whole civil rights thing and just all the stuff that was going on back then, like how was it? I mean, like that was a how was it? Was that it? Sorry, how was it? Something like that was just to happen, even with all that stuff going on. I'm just curious.
Well, music is a combining force that brings everybody together. My mother taught Indians at the San Carlos Indian Reservation for a short period of time, and then she moved to
Hmm.
the Indian school. My parents were always, you know, my mother and grandmother and my father were all teachers, and
Wow.
I was raised in the neighborhood I was with was mostly Mexicans and Indians, and there were a few African Americans, but mostly Mexicans and Mexicans more than anything else. So I was in the first one of the first Hispanic Mexican car clubs in Phoenix.
Wow.
So everything I did was around the kids, and basically, even though we all might have been different culturally, we all loved the same music. So
Hmm.
so it the first band that I had that took off in Phoenix was the Jokers, and they were made up of
Love the
mostly
Jokers.
Mexicans and Indians. And then I eventually brought in Fred Gowdy, who was a great entertainer. And then after that, Hinchy, which became the Freddie Hinchy and the Soul Setters. And but that's what. And then once I thought I had a handle on R&B, I started to venture out. I used to do rock shows. In fact, what's his name? I used to throw rock shows out in Tempe, Arizona,
Oh
and
wow.
wanted to have shows out there. And so, you know, I would get all the different bands, Bill Spooner and all of these young rock guys that left out of there to become big rockers, Alice Cooper and all of them. And
Oh man.
they would all out in Tempe. I think Alice Cooper played in one of the bands that I did, and then there was the Caravels who had a you know pretty good sized record. I found them and recorded them. So it was just you know every time I made any money in the concert business or any business that I did, I took the money and went into the studio and I was recording acts all the time. And of course, you know the biggest act that ever came out of there, what I shouldn't say big, but became a it's the holy grail of records. Is a group called the Servicemen,
Hmm.
and their big hit "Are You Angry?" In fact, I'm gonna give them a plug right now. I'm gonna be in Vegas for the Soul Trip USA, the 15th to the 22nd at the Tropicana in March, and
Yes.
and it'll be they're doing a tribute to me and the servicemen and the band is performing all the servicemen songs of the Five Tempting Men from Arizona, from California, who used to be part of the Black Ice Group. So
Oh man.
it's gonna be a fun, and about 5,000 people have come in from all over Europe. They do these things. I don't know if you're familiar with them called all nighters, and they
Huh.
do these all nighters. They call Northern Soul all nighters. So
Yes.
we're
I used to go
joining
to Northern Soul clubs in LA back, like it was a revival stuff when I mean I was kind of into the whole mod thing for a little bit. And
2004.
yeah.
They did a big one here. Yeah,
Oh
I
man.
that was my first adventure to see what it was, and I found out a record that I had produced it. Guys were saying, "Hey, if you got one, I'll give you $2,000 for it." I said, "What?" So they were buying my singles. I sold a couple singles for $1,500, 2,000.
Oh
Uh,
wow,
uh,
that's amazing.
they're big collector's items. But anyhow, that's I can go on, you know.
That's so cool. Here's something that I was wondering. Oh, speaking of you just mentioned the group. What was that song about the French fry? That stuff was hilarious.
Oh,
The
that was funny. I had the Soul Setters before Freddie joined them. We were doing something. I was recording them in the studio, something, and Tony Nebula said something about a French fry, and we just started laughing with each other. And I said, "Oh, you mean Cecil?" And then it took off from there. Cecil, the unwanted French fry. So I cut that, and it became a real big, novelty record among radio stations. And then the real Don Steele here in California, which that's the whole story unto itself. You know, he was a big DJ here. He wanted to cut it, and a guy that I handled some business for, Fred Smith, that produced Bob and Earl and the Olympics and all of them. I handled some stuff for him for a while, and
wow.
we cut it on on the real Don Steele, and that was my first time of meeting James Carmichael, the big arranger here, who went on to be the arranger producer for the Commodores and the lead singer for the Commodores. I'm forgetting his name for a second. I'm going to see him in Vegas. Lionel Richie.
Yeah,
And
Lionel.
but I got a chance to meet all these guys because of him, H.B. Barnum, and of course one of the greatest arrangers that never got credit that passed on was Ray Jackson, my writing partner. We wrote
Wow.
for many years,
You've met James Brown and Little Richard too, I heard. And like I my uncles, one of them was actually on here. I think he met him. Oh, my grandma actually is related to Little Richard. I've never met him, but my uncles have talked to him. How was that meeting him and James Brown? Like seriously, that must have been something else.
Well, it was more than meeting James Brown. I did all of James Brown concerts for 5 years in Phoenix. And
Wow.
what happened is I was working at the radio station one day, and somebody said we had one of those radio stations at KCAC that sit in a parking lot, and you could look in the parking lot. And a lady came in and says, "There's a guy out here in the parking lot wants to see you." I said, Who is he?" He says, "James Brown." I said, "Tell him to come on in." So James came in,
Awesome.
and we're sitting there, and we're talking, and I put his record on, and I'd back it up, like the DJs used to do. You can't do that now, but I'd back it up and talk a little smack over it and everything. So he liked me, and we sat there and talked, and he said, "Well, I made a specific trip to come see you." I said, "Me? Why?" He said, "Well," he said, "I heard you've been putting on dances around here for a long time." He says, "I'm starting, if you saw the movie Get On Up, or I mean, Get On Up, I think it was. James Brown in there with Ben Bart and the guys at Universal." He said, I don't want to work for guys anymore. I want to do my own shows." So what he was doing, he would go from city to city and find the biggest DJ there, and then he would say, "You're going to be a co-promoter of the shows." So, and I know how to do shows backwards and forwards. I just never did big shows, but I know how to do shows. So I knew how to get the arena and do the advertise. I knew how to do all of that. So, but he always had what they call a front man, a lead man that would follow into the territory and make sure everything was right before he got there. So James and I really hit it off. So for 5 years, I think I did Tucson 1 or 2 dates, but most of the Phoenix at the Coliseum and the Celebrity Theater. So I did James for about got close to 5 years.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
yeah, Little Richard, I only met twice. I brought him into Phoenix one time. I think it was 1 or 2 times. I brought him into Phoenix, and it was a Mexican guy in Phoenix. It was a big concert promoter named Calderon, and I kind of called him like a mentor for me for promoting shows because he used to invite me down to his club all the time, and he had everybody: Bobby Blue Bland, Chuck Berry. I mean, anybody that was black, he would bring me. He brought a lot of Hispanic groups too, but he
Mm.
featured a lot of black groups because nobody in town would ever bring black groups into town back there when I was like 19 or 20. So and when I got into radio, he would always have me come in and sit with him, and he tell me how he would book them and some of the things he would go through. So, I mean, I had some great mentors, that always shared information with me.
Wow. Speaking of mentors, when you started producing, were you self-taught or did you have mentors, or like how did you get into that? I'm just curious, like especially being a kid, like back then.
What happened is that my first recording session was with the Carnations, and the Geysers, big two big Irish kids, 6'7", 6'8", and you know how short I am, about 5'5". So they were they would one day we all pooled our money and we went into audio recorders to record, and we recorded those songs that are on the Garage Band. And
Yeah, I
after
dig
that,
those
I was
songs.
hooked. So every time I made some money and got a little money, I wanted to find a group and take them into the studio. I did Eddie
Mm.
and Ernie, which went on to be a very big R&B group. They had a big #1 record called "It's a Weak Man That's Cried." I didn't produce that, but I produced another record that is used in TV all the time called "Self Service" by Eddie and Ernie.
I
And
like that song.
it was always just I hustled money. Some guys take their money and buy cars, buy drugs, chase women. All my money went into making records, and I got
Wow,
a
there's some.
bunch of them.
You got a bunch of gems. That song "Self-Service," that I always think of that song as like the Valentine's Day blues. Like I take it personal, man, for many reasons. I'm like, I love that song, man. Like it's just
Yeah, you
like
know the
you
real story
bump.
behind that, but I won't say it online. But every everybody likes that record, and most people don't know what it's about. So I said, okay, keep playing it, you'll figure it out.
Man, well, it's funny. There's something else. You produce Carl Weathers too. I didn't know Carl Weathers was even a musician. I had no
Carl, Carl
idea.
Weathers, Carl Weathers can sing his behind off.
Yeah, he's awesome. I just was like tripping out when I was reading about you producing it. I'm like, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah. What happened is a friend of mine, Angel Ballestier, who became a very, very good friend and one of the best engineers. He and Dennis Sands on Group 4, and Angel produced did the engineering on Jimi Hendrix. I mean, you go on and on. He's done everybody. Ella Fitzgerald. We became very good friends. So he called me up when I had my office in Hollywood and said, "Listen, have you ever heard of Carl Weathers?" I said, "Yeah, man. He's an actor." He said, "Man, he's looking for a producer." I said, "Well, send him over. Let me talk to him." So he came over to the office. We sat there and talked, and we really hit it off. I said, "This guy, I liked him. He was really a nice man." So he said, "Well, come on. I know some people that have some songs, because everything I did was about songs, song. If there's no songs, there's no music. So I always was into songs." So we went over and saw this big writer, and she said, "Well, I'll write Carl Weathers a hit for $5,000." And I started laughing. So we walked out. I said to Carl, "Man, forget that. I'll find us a song." So Carl came back
Wow.
to my office and he said, "Well, I've been writing a few things." And I said, "Well, play me something." So he sat at the piano and started playing this song, a little bit of it, and it had the makings of really something good. So I said, "Well, let me put you with one of my writers." So I called Dwight Emil, who is he and I still write together today, and he wrote a lot of songs, and he's good, darn good writer. So I
Wow.
put him with Carl, and they wrote this song, and then they called me and said, "Well, come over and listen to it." So he started playing the song, and I listened to it. I said, "Oh man, this is a hit." So the way I was going to cut it, it was going to take some real money to cut it, which I did not have. So I called
Mm.
a friend of mine, Bob Black, an actor, and I said, "Man, I need 10 grand." He said, "Well, come on and get it." So I walked over and got the money, got some great musicians together. We took it to the studio, we recorded it, and then I went out and tried to pitch it. I went over to CBS and Sony, and they weren't interested. So a good friend of mine, Forrest Hamilton, he's my fishing buddy, who used to manage Isaac Hayes, Taste the Honey, and I mean, everybody big, he managed them. Well, he and I used to hang out and fish together all the time. So I called him up. I said, "Forrest," I said, "I got this great song, man, but I don't have a place to take it." He said, "Well, come
Man.
play it for me." So I came over and played it for him. He said, "Man, this is a good song." So I left, went back to my apartment. I couldn't have gotten to my apartment with my apartment about 15 minutes, and the phone rang. And he says, "Man, you need it. We just made a deal." I said, "Why? What happened?" He says, "I was playing the song in my office, and my door got knocked on, and I went to the door, and it was Greenberg at Atlantic Records. He said, "Man, what's that record?" He said, "That's my buddy." He said, "I got the record." I said, "Forrest, you don't have the record yet." But he said, I told him it was my record with you, and it's a great record. And so we made a deal with Atlanta. They lost the record, but if you ever heard that record, that record is Carl Weathers was one singing fool. He was dynamite, you know.
Wow.
But you know, it's like this business, you know. I don't care how good the records are. When you go to these majors, they can lose them better than you can.
That's horrible. It reminds me of. It's funny you bring that up because I'm gonna read a quote that you said, and I just wanted your opinion about it. It says there's something that I was reading. You said the music business is unpredictable. Even when everything is done right, things go wrong, and that every potential superstar or talent never gets heard. What is your theory about that? I'm curious. That's just something. I mean, because I
It's
know
very
people
simple.
even.
It's simple. I've made, which I consider some great records, and the reason they were great records because they stand the test of time. Any record that people still want it and still can listen to it for 30, 40 years, that's a good record. That doesn't mean it's a hit record. A hit
Mm,
record means you must have the machine behind it. And the machine is a very difficult thing to get, you know. I don't know how many times you have watched American Idol and all of those singing shows. Have you noticed one thing? All of those kids, when they get to a certain level, can sing, but not all of them have great songs to sing.
mm.
And they do have a good songs to sing, then they got to have the machine, the promotion, the marketing, all of that stuff behind them. And these companies have to spend money. If you're not lucky enough to do that, you're going to lose a record. So I never made records for money. I made records because I love making records. And I always tried to make sure the records came out that somebody could hear them, whether they made $1 million or $5 or $10. As long as they were that the public could hear them, they could get played on the radio station someplace. That's all I ever cared about.
Wow, it's amazing just because like even I even like when I was playing in groups and stuff, I know bands that I felt like would have just been amazing to hear, but so many people like I mean I don't know, it's just the industry or just maybe it's just they didn't get to that degree of something, like it's just maybe because there's an oversaturation of bands, I don't know,
No,
but
no, that's not it. It's it's fate. Being at the
mm,
right place at the right time, and all of the stars are aligned. Now,
mm,
most artists don't want to hear that, but that's the way it is. I mean, Michael Jackson, as great as he was, would not have been there if it hadn't have been for the people that met him, took him to Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy put the machine. Uh,
mm.
it's the and I've seen rock stars that I mean kids that could write, kids that could sing, great bands. You just can't believe the band I had, Frey Hinch and the Soul Settlers. I don't know if you've ever listened to any of that stuff, but go online and listen to them. That group right there could run any group off the stage. I had them with everybody, from
Wow.
Eric Burton, the Temptations. I had them on the show with James Brown. I had them anybody that was anybody they played with. They would
Mm.
run you off the stage, but I never caught a hit record. I made a great record called "Dance" on them, a album which is still one of the most popular records in the world today. But
Wow.
they didn't happen. But they worked all the time. In fact, one of the lead singers is in Colorado. He still works. He can't get
Wow.
around like he used to, but his name is Fred Gowdy. He can't get around like he used to, but can he still can sing, you know. And
Mm.
some other great singers, you know, Howard Hunts. You know who Howard Huntsberry is, don't you? Howard
Nah.
Huntsberry is another one of the great. Used to be with Click, had all the hits with Click, and then he sang the Higher and Higher in the La Bamba movie, and he
Oh wow.
Ghost. He did that. Eddie Horan, engineer, is his livelihood. Great writer, singer. He and I were writer partners for 15 years. You know, never great albums, great records. They never happened. Jerry Gonzalez, probably one of the best female singers but most people have never heard. I mean, she could sing the wallpaper off a wall. So,
Wow.
it's just one of those things. And every one of those people were in the business because they loved it, and
Man.
that's the key. You gotta love the business.
How would you say, how could I say this? As far as we kind of talked about this before, but I just wanted to get the consensus of the audience, and then I'm gonna turn it to whoever. There's a few quotes that I wanted to read. The audience put Lou, and see if the audience has any questions too. How would you say? What would you say the difference of the music business now than back then? I mean, there's some obvious differences, but I mean, as far as like just things that you notice, I'm just curious.
Songs, songs.
Mm.
The songs were better back then. Today, and
Yep.
it's not saying anything negative about kids, because hey, man, everybody's hustle is their hustle. I'm for them. But today, everything is manufactured. And if you
Yeah, it is.
listen, most of the songs today, you won't hear them in 7 months or 8 months or a year.
Mm.
I ran one of the first rap magazines in this country. And I could
Oh
tell you
wow.
this, when rap was at its height is when they sampled. Now, why did they sample? Because they could find a great song, a great melody, and do their thing. Tupac, Biggie Smalls, uh, 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 Snoop Dogg, all of those guys had great records because Dr. Dre sampled hit records and put their magic to it. What
Mm.
you're getting today with all of these kids, and I said nothing negative because, hey, man, everybody that's got a hustle, I'm for. But they'll
Yeah.
make a record today and you won't have a clue of what they're talking about. And it might sell, but the streaming is what is getting them, and they're all doing live concerts. That's where they're making their money and everything. But you won't know that song in 3 weeks, 3 months.
Wow.
Where every song that you deal with from the '60s on, and I don't like to talk like I go back because I go forward, but you have to go back sometime to come forward.
Oh
And
yeah,
all
you
of those
do.
songs had melodies. All of those songs had storylines. And so a singer could take a great song uh, and interpret it and make it their own. Today, they got beats, they got grooves, that's it. And Lord,
Wow.
young rappers today, there's only a few out there that tell stories. Tribe Called
Yep.
Quest, Kendrick Lamar,
Kendrick
uh,
Lamar.
Kendrick Lamar, few of them out there tell stories. Their music isn't all that, although I will give it to Tribe Called Quest because they sample one of my songs. Tribe Called
Oh
Quest,
man.
this album is the bomb. That album, and one of my songs that I'm gonna give it a shout out is Lucky Lucien. That's one of my
Oh, I
songs.
love that song. Wait, that was
And
your track? I
no,
didn't know. I
no,
love that
Jackson was
song.
my writing partner because I have a lot of songs that people wrote. Ray Jackson wrote that song, and it
Oh
was a it
man.
was a jazz song. But uh, if you listen to rap during that period I was talking to, the Dr. Dre was out there, and all the guys during that period, they were sampling, and they were sampling because outside of Dr. Dre, a lot of them didn't know music. They
Mm.
didn't. Well, you're out there teaching kids music. There's no music schools anymore. There's no kids where they can learn uh, chord structure, how to put things together, music theory. They don't know anything. But that talent is in them, and they just want it to come out, however it can come out. And
Wow.
but that's what we're running into today. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. I'm just jazzed. Lou wanted to say something. Lou said, I always imagine the major labels will sometimes buy the rights and then bury the music for internal politics or otherwise. He
No,
questioned you on that one.
no, that's not
No?
what the majors. Not. I can't tell you what the majors. I'll tell you what the majors are today. The majors are today. They're bankers.
Oh
They're
Lord.
run by accountants and efficiency experts. And somebody will bring them a record or made a record someplace that's happening, and they'll jump on it. And they don't destroy records by purpose. They destroy records because they don't know what they're doing. And
Huh.
and if anybody challenges me on that, I'll challenge them all day. If you were, let me give you an example, Orlando. If you wrote a song that was a hit in 1980 that everybody knew, and you stopped making records, but that record made money for you, and it'll always make money for you. If you called over there, if I was a film producer today and I called, I'm gonna say any company, let's say Warner Brothers, and I call Warner Brothers and I say, you know what, that song that you guys put out, I want to use it in a movie, and I'm prepared to pay $30,000, $40,000 to put it in a movie. You know, they'll have people over there that will tell you they don't own the song. They don't even
Hmm.
know what's in their catalog because Warner's has probably got 8 million songs. Now, how many? If you own 8 million songs, how many of them songs would you know? And the kids of the people they run through them companies are all experts in the computer. They don't have any theory or any thoughts whatsoever about music. So
Man, that's horrible.
you're you're getting accountants and you're getting efficiency experts and you're getting attorneys that are running companies. They look at numbers. They don't know music. If you
Huh.
get out there and make a record happen, they'll know you. I will tell anybody today, start your own music business because you can do it. You can do it in a bathroom today. You put, you could make. I made a record for $50 in the backyard, and I sold 100,000. So you
Wow.
can make your own records, control, and then if big boys come to you and say we want to do business, you say, okay, this is how I'll do business with you. You distribute for me. I own everything, and you take a percentage of what you sell. And that's how you, if you're gonna get into business today, because if you put your faith into a major company, you'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, I noticed. Like, I mean, look at everybody from Frankie Lyman to Screaming Jay Hawkins, and even, a lot of cats today. I mean, I've heard of really cricket contact. I mean, contracts. And I'm like, man, like that's just really bad.
Well, that
Eloise. I'm
you're
sorry.
mentioning the old crowd. Back then, everybody wanted to get into business. Everybody wanted to make records, and nobody knew contracts, and nobody studied contracts. From the
Mm,
day I got in this business, I made a decision. I got jacked once. I said I'd never get jacked again, and I decided to learn the business. Today, there's no reason for a young kid not to know the business. None. Because you can go Google, there's contracts, I mean there's school classes. I mean you can learn the business. So there's no excuse not to know the business.
Do you feel like the business is always changing though? Like, is it always just like there's always something that changes in it, or do you feel that it's the same or both?
Nah. The business changes every 6 months. The record companies are making more money than they've ever made in their life, but they're making it off of streaming. And they're making all the money, but the artists, the writers, the producers, the publishers ain't making squat. Okay, they're not making anything. And I could tell you because I've had songs recorded from Sam and Dave to Michael Jackson to Bill Withers. I mean, a little bit of everybody. And there is no money in the record business. There's a lot of money in the entertainment business, and
Huh.
that's a big difference. And people ask me, well, what's the entertainment business? TV, movies, commercials, marketing, uh, product placement. That's where the money is. A record is only an invitation to the party today, where it
Mm.
didn't used to be that way. If you got a record, that record gives you the invitation to come into the party where the money's being made. But if you're looking to make money off that record, its chances are slim and none.
Wow. We have a few comments and questions. Um, Eloise, I guess she was coming in on a comment that you said earlier. She's all he's right. Record execs are like bean counters. Um, and Ed Pruitt, what's up, man? What's up, Midnight? Says, what's up? Lou says, thank you, Hadley. I've always wondered, glad to hear my suspicions were unwarranted. Cool. um, what was the other question? Hey, what's up, Amde? I think you guys, do you know Amde from Watts Profits? I wonder if you guys know each other.
No,
Um, this is hi, I'm Dave from Watts Profits. So cool, you're watching too. Ed Pruitt says, "What's good?" And he had a question. He said, "Is country music making the most?" as far as like just as far as like I don't know what do you mean, Ed? Just like sales wise, or just kind of like you know concert wise, or
Well, country music is one of the few musics today where people are really writing songs. I mean,
mm,
they're song orientated, but they got
wow,
something that nobody else has. They have touring venues. Young black kids today, when I came up, there was always a club you could play, someplace you could build your skill as an entertainer. We don't have those, but the country acts. I mean, they once they catch any kind of record or a decent record, they can work all the time, and that's
wow.
why and they hone themselves as entertainers and musicians because they can work, and that's real important, you know. Um, but yeah, if in fact if there's any country artists out there that need a hit, I got one for them. Plus, I've had country hits, so I know.
Wow. Does that answer your question, Ed? Because that's funny. Before I even read, it's like the chicken is a side dish, and but other orders is what it brings customers, concerts, and sales. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So you answered his question, man.
Mm.
It's a trip. Like even when you think of something like country, um, and even like what about blues though? Because I mean, don't you think blues kind of like they country and blues kind of share the same thing, right? I mean, even
No,
though like you know,
country is blues. Country
yeah,
is
that's right. It's Delta
got the white
blues.
face. They got a white face. That's all. There's nothing wrong with it. But
No,
there
nothing
wouldn't
wrong
be
with it
no
at
country
all.
if there
No,
wasn't blues. You know,
that's true.
R&B used to be blues, and it's still a little blues, okay? But country, there'd be no country if you didn't have blues, cause
Mm,
they're the same thing. I didn't get the job. The lady left me.
yep.
Somebody cheated on me. I need me a new one. It's the same story, just told differently. You want to hear
Do you think? I'm
a
sorry.
guy deliver a song? Listen, and I tell anybody, you want to see a guy deliver a song? His name is Chris Stapleton. Listen to him sing that hit song of his called Whiskey, some kind of whiskey or something. You hear that song, you will know what a songwriter sounds like. That boy can
Mm,
write. Stapleton.
wow. Well, I was just wondering if it's if blues, like modern blues music today, is received the same way country is. Like, I mean, it's
No,
like no. Hmm.
they don't have the. First of all, there are more country radio stations in America than any other station.
Yep.
Okay, and
Man.
because of that, you can constantly hear uh, the music. They're probably, if you go to every city in this country, you'll probably only find maybe one or two stations that'll play the blues. There's not hardly anybody plays blues.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
when you go to blues concert, 80% of the people at blues concert are white because
Hmm.
younger people don't buy it, and older people want R&B, and so blues is really kept alive by white audiences.
That's a trip, man. It's kind of a trip even thinking about like even hip hop because I mean I didn't know. I mean I grew up in the 80s and early 90s. You know I was into punk hip hop and then I reached back to the 70s and listened to all the progressive rock fusion and funk stuff too. So I had all that. But like even thinking about hip hop, I tripped out when I first heard that like a majority white people listen to it than even us. I'm like it was kind of blowing my mind, you know, like I didn't realize that until like much later, but it was just like kind of a strange eye opener. But man, there's something. What do you think is the most crucial element of not only being a musician, but also being just in the music business, period, you know, or just music if you're trying to make a living? I mean, we kind of talked about this too, you know, in another conversation.
Mm. Well, first of all, if you want to be in the music business, then you need to get a job. Cause
Yep.
now, and what I'm saying is, it is extremely difficult to contribute your whole life to music today. Okay, a
It
job
is.
allows you to put food on the table, keep a roof over your head, and not live in your parents' basement. You know,
Mm.
and so that's the first thing. Get a job and then live for music. Work at music. And I got friends that do that. They work at music because they love music. They're not working at it because they think they're going to get rich or they're going to retire. That's a product if you're lucky. But you work at it first of all because you love it. That's number one. And second of all, learn the business
Mm.
because the business has a lot of potholes in it and you'll step in one if you don't know the business. So take a little time and
And,
learn the business. Because I've seen so many artists, man, I just want to make music, man. I ain't got time for that. Well, they don't have time for it when that big check goes someplace else and they don't get it.
oh, not
So
good. Not good
you
at
have to,
all.
learn the business.
What would you tell? I mean, I work with a lot of kids, and a lot of these kids, it's funny. Even like with your story, it's very inspiring because it's like almost I'm seeing my version of what I read inside of the garage compilation. I work with a bunch of kids. I mean, most of the ones that are active like this are between like late teens and like mid to late 20s. Um, they're all about like trying to like just broaden like their audience and they're doing videos. I mean, they've gone beyond even like the class part, me teaching them and all that. They've made videos. I'm so happy that they're putting out their own stuff.
Great.
What I'm sorry?
I was saying great. See, those things weren't available to us when we were coming up. I mean, our exposure was go play at a teen party or go play at a old folks home. We would go
Mm,
play anywhere just to be exposed. And then once
wow.
we found out we had an audience, then we would up our game. And then somebody like me would come along and say, okay, we've been giving this talent away too much. Let's charge at the door. So, every little
Wow.
step you get. And, you never know where it takes you, but you always have to look further out. The number one thing, Orlando, I tell them all, I don't care how good you play or whatever, learn songs, learn how to find songs, learn how to write songs, learn how to get with other people that write songs, learn to go back and get old hit songs and put your own interpretation to them. But songs,
Mm,
songs, songs. That's real important.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's I mean, even learning those songs, like me as a youth, it taught me like how to play and put it in my own like way of conjugating music in itself. Like it's almost like it gave to me and I'm giving back. By even what I learned from that. So it's interesting. Um, Man, anybody have any questions? Oh, hi, I'm Dave. Thanks. Yeah, one love, man, for sure. Anybody else have any questions to ask Mr. Morrell? This is really cool. He's giving us
Hadley,
insight.
as Hadley.
I'm sorry. I'm so
My
used to
father
say,
was Murrell.
man. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. How many of the bands did you play in that you produced? I'm
I only,
curious.
I, I only play uh, the Carnations. Uh, and there's a new compilation I have coming out called Road Dogs. In fact, we're getting it ready now. And
Mm,
there were a couple of cuts in there that I had to show people how to play the drums for it. But I didn't play that much in the studio because there were always 10 times better drummers than me. And I definitely always got the best drummers, best guitar, best bass players. I had Al McKay, the
oh,
bass player from the American Idol. I used to have him, and the drummer from many bands. I mean, there were always great musicians, and I was death on the rhythm section. I wanted to kill a rhythm section, but very seldom that I play. I'd always help structure, or well, I was big into rehearsals, so we would rehearse the song until we had it down because I never had the money to mess around in the studio. I had to get in there and cut it. So
mm,
I we rehearse, And then when we went in there, the engineers were shocked because it 2, 3 takes and we threw.
See, that's the thing about a
I
lot
did the
of.
old did the old Chuck Berry thing. A 1, a 2, you know what to do.
Yeah, that's what we have to definitely learn, because like a lot of our generation is just like, okay, we'll cut it because we're so used to. That stuff was expensive back then, man. So it's
Yeah,
like you guys had to get it, like ah.
I used to
Lou
laugh
was asking. Oh, sorry.
like this band, Fleetwood Mac, and he used to go over to a friend of mine's studio, and they would tell me that they'd be in there. It takes them half a day to get a sound on the snare, and I used to
Are you
laugh.
serious?
Man, you can't believe the budgets the guys have, and they'd be in there working, and they'd go out and sniff a little bit and come back in and work on the snare. I said, man, just hit that snare, let's go.
Man, you guys weren't playing around at all, man.
No,
Literally, like you were playing but not playing around.
no,
That's dope.
money, lack of money stops playing.
For real. Man, Lou was asking, what's the best self-distribution outlet?
Uh, TuneCore. Uh, TuneCore charges you $49 a year to sell your album. $9 a year, $9.50 a year, something like that, to sell your single. I don't know
Wow.
what CD Baby is. I know a lot of people use CD, but I like TuneCore because I can put it up there and then I do my little promotion. And I can tell you something. I found out I can out promote anybody today, even though I don't sell a lot of records. But they study by going to YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll write a little clip about a song, and I'll spend an hour in the morning posting it with YouTube with the people that might like that kind of song, and you'd be surprised. 5 albums here, 10 singles over there, 3 albums here. That's more than I could sell out of the back of my car.
Wow. That's
What
amazing,
is this?
man.
Is this a walking interview?
Huh?
I see you moving around. I thought there's a walking interview.
Oh yeah, I'm just wondering why they have the door open. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
I need to. I'm gonna close the door.
Okay.
I gotta close the door. Sorry. They have a class in the next room, but like it's just kind of like I'm just kind of signaling
I've
them.
done, I've, I've done a lot of interviews, but most of the time the host is sitting in a great set. He's not walking around, so this is gonna be the first. I got a host
Sorry about
walking
that.
around. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
don't. Hey, listen, I have changed in more. I've changed clothes in more bathrooms and in more kitchens than you can shake a stick at. So, hey, man, you do what you got to do in this business to make it.
Yeah, I was just like the noise was coming out to close the door. I'm like, man, these guys are opening this. Man, wow, man, I really appreciate it. Hey, there's my dad. What's up, Daddy? Hold on. Oh, okay, cool. They got that thing closed. Um, my dad's also a musician, and he he said he jammed out with Marvin Gaye once too, like back in the day. Like
Okay.
he could expound off of that. I don't know
Did
the
he?
details of the story, but that's really cool, man. I really appreciate you even doing this interview, and just dropping this knowledge, because a lot of these kids need to know. Like for me, I had a lot of things where, I learned a lot going on tour and stuff and recording in bands, but it's so cool to see like a lot of these kids, still at it. And music does a lot. Music pretty much it helped me even identify my own self, like just as a young kid, just kind of an awkward kid at that, trying to find himself, and I found myself in that. I felt like music is a gift from the Most High to help you with things like that, and just, man, I mean, music is the reason that we're communicating, so it's really cool, like I really dig this, man.
Well, Orlando, we don't have enough kids today that are learning music. And if we had more music courses and music in school, we wouldn't have kids hanging out on the corner. You know, the hanging out is probably the worst thing that could happen to a young person. You need to be someplace with an instrument, in a closet, in a room, practicing. Now, you know, we're
Mm,
not all able to play sports. We're not going to be basketball players. We're not going to be football players or baseball players. But and you can learn music. And even if you don't make a living in music, music teaches you discipline. It teaches you how to get along with other people. It teaches you so many things, and we're missing that in the schools today. And it's something we got to get back. Some of the artists that are making a lot of money are starting to put back into music in various schools in their communities, and that's the most important thing. And if I ever get a chance to talk to more people about that, that's my number one goal from now on. Music in the schools, and when they don't
mm.
have music in the schools, then somebody needs to take young kids aside who's got time and teach them music. Teach them
Yep.
how to be on time. Teach them how to get along with other people, and just teach them. I'll tell you a quick story, and then and I'm whenever you're through, I'm through. When I was in Phoenix, there was a kid that they used to call the Dog Man, and he was
Mm,
a heavyweight, and he walked down the street all the time, and all these dogs would follow him. And he went to St. Mary's. I think he went there for about a year. So when I was with the the Carnations practicing in our garage at home, he came by one time with a guitar, and he said, "Can I sit in?" I said, "Yeah, man, come on, sit in." And he played the guitar upside down like Jimi Hendrix, but he was before Jimi Hendrix and before Al
wow.
McKay. He went on to be Pete Cosey, and most people don't know Pete Cosey, but his name is Big Boy Pete. He was the top guitar player for Chess Records, and that's him playing on Electric Mud with Miles Davis.
Yeah, what
And
I know, I
and
just posted about him. I love that guy stuff.
he and I started playing together in Phoenix, along with Rich Kaysen, who went on to be a. I used Rich. Rich came here and wrote for me for a while, but went on to be one of the great producers of the South. Bobby Blue Bland. I mean, on and on and on.
Mm,
Great, great writer. But all of these guys stayed out of any kind of harm's way in life because they were involved in music. That's where their interest went, towards music, and they found success. Now, I can't tell you how much money they made. They didn't measure it in dollars. They measured it in doing good things, and leaving works of art, music that will be here from to the end of time. And that's great. Those guys are the Picassos of our time. You know.
man, I dig Pete Cosey, man. I first saw him actually on that Miles Live 1973 performance. Tripped me
That was
out. I'm
him.
like, this dude is just killing it. Yeah, man. Like with his long beard and like he had a big
Yes.
natural, like
He used to
man,
set up in his room, and when I would go over to his house, he'd set up in this room, and he was very heavy then, and he would play that guitar. He probably played it till his fingers bled. He played, he played,
man.
he played, he played. And when I was out with the Carnations, I was out with them because I was making money. And Pete Cosey and Richard would call and say, "Man, why don't you come on play some R&B with us?" And I'd say, "Okay." And I didn't drive at that time, so they would pick me up, and we'd go to these. I used to call them gut bucket joints, where they cut and shoot. And we'd go in there, man, and sit down and play the blues and rock the place. And they get to fighting in there too much, so I had to call it quits. I said, I love some R&B, but these places are a little too rough for me.
Man. Yeah, I dig his stuff on Electric Mud too, man. Like that
Yeah,
was just some like I
yeah,
yeah, that guy is
dynamite guy.
man.
Yeah,
Wow. Man, I know he passed, so like rest in peace to Pete Cosey, man. Like that's a
yeah.
trip, like man. Oh my
Well, what
Lou said
I got you
I'm
before
sorry.
you say something, I want to do a shout out. Is it okay?
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Okay. John Dixon in Phoenix, his mother's 104, and it looks
Mm.
like she's going to go visit the big record producer in the sky. So I wanted to send out my love to her, and say when she gets there, could she have him throw some goodies back this way? So
Right
I
on. Yeah.
I got a lot of friends in Phoenix. You know, one that worked for the Arizona Republic, Dad Nowicki, and Al Perry in Tucson, and uh, uh, tons of friends here. Jerry Gonzalez, Howard Huntsberry, Dwight Emil. All of these people contributed to my success in the music business in one fashion or the other, and I want to give a shout out to them.
Man, that's so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm like totally just like jazzed right now doing this interview. Seriously, you don't know how much of an honor this is. Like, I have to ask you, maybe I asked this before, but I wasn't sure. What musicians at the time, especially like what musicians come to mind that just like really like made you want to be like, I gotta do this. Like Jimi Hendrix was the one that got me playing. Like he's the one that like as a 12-year-old kid seeing that guy like on TV, I just had to play, like I'm like I gotta do this, like
Number one, James Brown.
mm,
And James Brown had the tightest band, and because I knew him personally and I did his concerts, I get to go to rehearsals and stuff. And I love the discipline that he had with his band. This is way before he went crazy, but James was always great to me. I loved how he worked his band. I promoted a couple shows with Ike Turner. I watched
mm,
how Ike worked his band. Those guys knew how to get a band in shape. Now the other stuff I don't know about, but getting a band in shape and having the musicians on the dime, those were two of the guys. Those were two of the best that I'd ever known. And I mean, they could lock a band down now.
amazing. Do you still play out at all, or you still jam even like around your house, or?
Oh, yeah. And if I got behind the trap today, the only thing that I could do is keep time. That's it. But
Wow.
but the basics of all my music has been because of drums.
Mm,
Because anybody will tell you that worked with me, I am killer on the rhythm. I wanted to, I want it in your soul. I want you to feel that music in your soul. Whether it's fast, whether it's slow, whatever it is, you must feel that music. That's where I start. Well, I start with the song, but before I put any sweetening on anything, that rhythm must be together. Whether it's up tempo, whether it's slow, whether it's funky, whether it's rock, that rhythm has to be together. That's where I start at.
mm, amazing, man. Anybody? I was gonna give it to the audience to see if they had any questions. Lou actually had something earlier that he quoted you on. Let me see, and I missed it. I just remember he says music combining force that brings everyone. Music is a combining force that brings everyone together. He's quoting you on this, and yeah, man, you're right. you know, oh man.
Hey,
So I'm just wondering.
here's a quote that all your people should know, and I'm gonna quote Quincy Jones. The song is power. The singer is a messenger. And I had to write that down because I said, "Go on, Quincy, with your bad self." And he's right. The song is power, and the singer is the messenger.
Mm, that's true. Yeah, man. Well, anybody in the audience have any questions for Hadley? I mean, this is like legend. Seriously, like seriously, I'm like beyond jazz.
Well, first of all,
Man,
I don't know about all that legend stuff, but yeah,
man, seriously, like I really dig like what you've done. Like as far as like even being a youth, like a lot of some of my sound army guys, I was telling them, to check this out because a lot of them were how where you were even back then, like and just for being that young, especially back then, like and doing what you were doing, that's like amazing. I don't know how many people can say that, like 14, 15, producing albums and managing bands and all that, that's pretty cool. Like I mean, now it's a thing, but like back then, like I don't know how many cats were actually on the other business side of that, like just
Well, I
You know,
came from a
I mean,
I came from a family that always talked into being independent in some form. And
mm,
so even though they were teachers, I mean, they had a hustle on. My father would buy old houses and make us work to fix them up. So, and my mother would do taxes, and my grandmother would whip everybody's behind, So, but we didn't have time to mess up. Somebody stayed on us 24/7. And as a kid, you say, "Oh man," but when you become adult, you knew which road to take and what road not to take. I can tell you that.
yeah, my parents too. Like, I mean, my parents were kind of like, I guess, more liberal than some people might get, but they let me know when I was like slipping, and I'm glad that I had those guidance, like
Sure.
because it helps me to be where I am now and just kind of consider a lot of things that I probably wouldn't, and man, well, shoot, I mean, do you have anything that you want to tell or any advice that you would give us, like, you know, just in general, like just life advice?
Here's number one, and one of my writers will tell you this. If he never learned anything from me, learn this: be on time. That's my number one peeve with musicians, entertainers, anybody. Be on time, because if you're on time, you not only respect my time, you respect your own time, and that means you're prepared to do business. And
Mm.
so many kids today don't learn that. They'll come at if you say rehearsals at 7 o'clock, they'll come at 7:30, and then they'll come with excuses. Well, the bus was running late, and my girlfriend didn't pick me up. They only get one of those with me. They may get a half of one, but after that, I'm through. Because if you don't respect my time, you're never going to respect your own time or anybody else's time. And so I start with that, and then once we get that out the way, then let's get to business. And that's the one thing I could tell anybody out there today. Because if you do that, you're ready for life.
Mm. Real talk, real talk. Man, well, anyone have anything that they want to ask Hadley out there? Just wondering. This has been really cool, really, really cool.
It's ready to get their cold one and call it a night.
Okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate you, and thanks for your patience with this whole Facebook thing. Their technology is a trip.
Hey, listen, I only know how to turn the phone on and turn it off. So
Man,
anybody that can do the things you guys are doing today, man, it's fantastic. But thank you for inviting me. And if you got anybody that along the line that wants a little direction, I'm happy to give it to you to pass it on.
most definitely, man. Lou actually says hardcore thanks again. Lou Garcia actually was in a band that I looked up to as a kid too. So I got two heroes that I'm on here talking to.
Well,
Eloise said, just loving it. Thank you, Hadley, and thank you, Orlando. Thank you.
and thank your audience, and thank you, Orlando, for setting this up. Okay.
Thank you. Jerry says, love my Hadley.
Right.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks again. So we're gonna call it a night, and thank you to Mr. Hadley Murrell, and thank all of you. This is Orlando Greenhill at Odd Talks. Peace and be cool.